a red flag flying here.
And I forgot to turn my mic on again. Well done. Well, we had to swap control of the show, and I've just got off my deathbed, and hope men flu and all, and hopefully we'll be live. Sorry we're a bit late. Jane, do you want to introduce everyone?
We're as organised as the left right now.
Yes,
everybody.
More so.
This is like a metaphorical, literal interpretation of socialist politics right now. Hey, I'll take it.
Oh, so thank you so much, Mark, for saving the day, because I was going to run the tech and it did not like it one bit. And thankfully, Mark, who is so poorly, has stepped in at the last minute and had this all dumped on him. So thank you so much, Mark. And we've got Claudia here with us tonight from the Independent Media Association and Bywire News. So we're really happy to have her here. Claudia, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. This is my second time on here and I'm very excited to be here.
We're very happy to have you here. And we've got Kat from Socialist Think Tank London.
Hey everyone. I mean, if you don't know my politics already, I'm outside of the Labour Party. I'm an RMT trade union rep, and I probably swear a bit too much.
But you're lovely and we love you, so it's good to have you here too. And Mark.
Yeah, I probably will as well because I've got the old medicinal honey jack to keep me nicely stop coughing out of your ear. So apologies if you get a hacking cough even. Yeah, how are we doing, guys?
Well, we were going to talk tonight about how free is our media. Claudia, I didn't know if you wouldn't mind actually just telling everyone what happened with Novara Media this week.
Oh, right. So for anyone who isn't familiar, Novara Media, a largely left-wing online-based publication who relies strongly on YouTube as a platform to publish their weekly shows, as much as other content, basically had their YouTube channel deleted temporarily, but it was deleted without any explanation, without any warning. And it was only after they had released a statement on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, where they obviously gained support from several other independent media organizations across the country, as well as others. It was only then that YouTube reinstated their YouTube channel again. But YouTube is known for deleting accounts without feeling like they need to provide an explanation. And obviously you can't exactly call up YouTube and be like, hey, why is my account gone? And it does tie into like this bigger picture of like large tech organizations and large social media organizations being very anti-independent media and being focused on promoting the work of mainstream media organizations. So yeah.
Thank you. Kat, what do you think about what's happened with Novara this week?
I mean, I'm not always their biggest fan. I'm happy they exist. I'm not always their biggest fan, but I think that human error, which I think is what was quoted as to why that account got wiped, is questionable, because we have to ask the bigger questions, such as, big tech having control of these things needs to make us ask bigger questions, such as what can we do? What technology can we create? What technology can we join and support that offers us more protection than an arbitrary, someone made a mistake, your entire account got deleted. And if you, followed any of the awful coverage from The Spectator or Spiked Online or anything like that, and where they have to report everything within one sentence, they have to say woke at least 3 times and mention Jeremy Corbyn for no apparent reason. We have to learn from that culturally on the left as socialist, wherever we stand, outside of the Labour Party, in it, hating it, liking it a bit from the outside. You know, whatever that position is, we have to find common ground, and we need to find solutions, which means, in my view, we need to find alternatives. And you know, I'll hand over to Mark now. You know, with his knowledge of blockchain and other such technologies, there are left-wing communities and left-wing activists who are saying we should be looking at this, and we do have those solutions within our grasp. We are not a community of people without technological knowledge. That there are people within our communities who can, and we need to resource them, but who can provide us alternatives, and we've got to grow the balls and do it.
I mean, with the whole thing with Novara, it's a bit of a weird one. You might notice I've changed my background to actually show the Black Country flag. Now that is because basically we had a problem in the West Midlands with Facebook. They kept on deleting Black Country Facebook pages because of the term Black Country. American hadn't heard of it, you see, and so especially when they started talking about a favourite dish, which is faggots and paise, and it is said that way, and it's literally there is a British thing called faggots, and Americans would just
I'm one of them, Mark.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the food. I won't tell you what a favourite pub of mine used to call its dish, which was made of faggot. So if anybody's been to Mad O'Rourke's, but that's another thing. But I think there has been a mistake with Novara. We all thought it was political, but there is a lot of pressure put on the people that make that decision to actually delete a site, because it can cause a lot of problems, and they have to do it quickly. And it's delete first, look at it later. And as you say, it's very difficult to actually overturn a decision. I remember Dahlia on Novara actually saying it reminded her of what happens with Uber drivers when they get deleted from the app. It takes them forever to get put back on, because she does a lot of representation with the Uber union and what have you.
Yeah, and what place capitalism plays in that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if the ability of big technology is to be able to literally delete workers or literally delete journalists, which is what happened with Novara, whether it be a mistake or not, we have to ask those questions in a democratic society. You know, should we allow this? The state is definitely a big fan of that happening. That, you know, the state would love and does love the censorship that happens, as we have seen with a lot of things kicking off in the last couple of weeks. But, you know, I do think that the model of capitalism is the thing that stokes this fire.
Claudia, do you think that money plays a too big a role in this, or do you think it's algorithms and no human interaction?
I think it's a combination of both. Do you know what I mean? Like, algorithm is structured in a way to make money, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. They are structured in that way. Otherwise, why me as a student, a broke student, when I was a student, why was I getting adverts left, right, and center about holidays at the exact same time I was getting student finance? Do you know what I mean? So it is a combination of algorithms and capitalism absolutely kicking everyone's ass. But I do want to pick up on something that Kat actually say, and I am going to do this as an unapologetic plug. But you mentioned the whole idea of blockchain. So obviously I work for Bywire as well, and Bywire is actually currently offering independent media organizations as well as across the globe, not just in the UK, but the opportunity. So our whole website is actually stored on the blockchain. As Michael dabbles in all of that, I don't know all of that stuff, but it's stored on the blockchain. So what it means is that any and
I think we've got some of the joys of capitalist broadband here. I think we're losing everybody. Can you still hear us out there?
No, mine was fine. Sorry. Is everyone else all right?
I'm all good. Claudia, jump back on with the blockchain plug.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm all good. So right, Bywire offers our partners, so mainly independent media organizations, the option to basically install a plugin onto their website, which means that all of their content is fed directly onto ours. And that then stores their content on the blockchain. Now, that obviously means that if it gives readers the sense of accountability for what people write. Obviously, you had the whole thing with Dominic Cummings when he wrote a blog post and went back and changed it to suit his agenda. With this, it gives people there's comfort in the knowledge that you can't go back, and even if you go and change something, there is a mark that will say this has been changed and this is what it was changed from. So yeah, there, like you said, Kat, there are alternatives that people should look at, especially with social media right now is really not working in the favor of not just independent media, but any left-wing organizations, really any organizations that, especially Facebook is anti anything that's good, and Facebook owns Instagram. So I'm always like, oh yeah, fuck Facebook, let's do Instagram. But Instagram is owned by Facebook, so how does it make it any better? Do you know what I mean? So TikTok's a good option, but TikTok has so many restrictions on things that social media really isn't the way forward. It's not.
And now Twitter has totally nicked Clubhouse's idea.
Yeah,
and it's doing audio conversations. It's a fascinating you know, the bear this in mind. The way I'm saying this is there's a thing or two we can learn from the right in how they used Reddit and how they moved beyond using Reddit to the different forms that they used, where they disintegrated and it wasn't about the biggest audience, in which I don't mean we should learn lessons from their ethics or their politics, fuck them, but we should look to the decisions that people make to how we join online as community. So, you know, what is the role of censorship? What is the role of anonymity? And what is the role of accountability? Because I don't think that conversation has been had enough. You know, accountability, you know, what Claudia was talking about with blockchain does offer some form of accountability. Not necessarily directly, but I will accept abstractly. And you know, where is our ethics? What is our ethics shaped as? And how does it function? Just like being in a trade union. How does my trade union function? How are my reps elected? How are the officers elected? How are the full-time officers elected? You know, we should be a part of all of those processes. And there's no reason why social media cannot adhere to those same rules of how do we democratically want to run things. Because if we really want to, and we resource it and we organise well enough, which we're capable of, we can do this.
So, but then I'd say, Claudia, to you, because
I think we've lost.
Would you?
Is it just my Wi-Fi, or have we lost Kat, or are you gone quiet?
I think it's just you, Mark.
Sorry,
solidarity.
Mark. Yeah. Sorry, I think I can hear okay as well. It looks like some of the viewers are getting some glitches, but it sounds like it's all right overall.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask Claudia, would you advise smaller news outlets to think about moving off of YouTube and Facebook and going across to smaller platforms that suit their values more?
One thing that I think is very a good approach to move off of social media. It's not necessarily the end thing that you should be doing, because a lot of people, it's basically email lists, but obviously a lot of people use Gmail, right? And Gmail is still another big tech organization, so it's still very questionable. But the thing is with email lists, if you attract people to an email list, it's not exactly, once someone sign up to your email list, they sign up to your email list. It's not an algorithm based situation where you're gonna get ranked down this, that, and or the other. If anything, you might get put into spam. But if you let people know, okay, check your spam, if they check it and they're really interested, they can take it out. And the good thing about that is that does give you the audience and the kind of community that you do want. Like, you're not going to get people, like, obviously you get a lot of trolls on social media. That's another thing that you don't necessarily want. And trolls on social media, they often follow you. They follow you because they want to stay up to date with your content, so they can talk shit whenever they feel like they can. No, people don't go to that much effort as signing up to your email list and they can't even email you back like, oh, fuck you, oh, this is this, or some racist bullshit. They can't. But I would say moving off of it is like, even Kat, you mentioned that a lot of social media platforms are like competing with each other. One thing that, if you notice, they compete with each other, but the top platform right now is TikTok. If all platforms try to compete with TikTok, the content that they do is short form video content. Now that is perfect. It's basically headline clickbait bullshit, right? Mainstream media is perfect at doing clickbait headlines, giving you a 10 word sentence that's going to make you want to read. They're perfect to adapt to that kind of format of social media. Now, if you're providing investigative journalism and journalism that actually tries to give you facts and honest reporting, like independent media does, it is very hard to be able to conform that to that kind of format. So eventually you're going to come across social media platforms that you're not even going to be able to. Twitter's going to go back to only allowing you to tweet 140 characters. Do you know what I mean? You're going to be so limited in what you can post that you're going to result to having to diminish the what's the word I'm looking for? Diminish the value or the how good your content is just to be able to actually post on social media, and you don't want to be doing that.
Don't. So, Mark, then, do you think we should be concerned about corporations like Google and Facebook regulating media outlets on social media?
Yes. Very simply, yes. I mean, why should a private company have that kind of power? We need it to be in the commons. We as socialists don't talk enough about the commons, and that's part of socialism. So the commons were common land where anybody could graze their animals, or obviously this is going back ages, but we need new commons, and one of those could be the internet. Do we need a left-wing social media, which is a common?
Kat, what do you think?
I think common ownership is, that's good Marxism, my friends. I think also, just like Claudia said about TikTok, about the relationship between short bursts of information and needing to talk about something within the context of it, which is long form, and where the long form presence, and therefore, by rights, where journalism sits, where either essentially in a binary situation in which our centrist politics would love us to think we exist in, we fucking don't, is that it's short bites or it's long, boring articles. When I'm not a full-time union rep, which I have been for the last 3 years, but I go back to my normal shift work day job in January, I'll work a full shift. I am still capable of spending 10 minutes reading an article. I can be knackered from doing a week of night shifts on the tube, on London Underground, where I work, and I'm still capable of reading an article that takes me more than 8 seconds to read. And I think that has to dominate in the way that we communicate. And I don't mean the way that we communicate in mass media. We don't trust them. They don't have our interests at heart. I mean in how we gather in our branches, in our union meetings. That's my experience. But in our versions of community that aren't necessarily those things, we take time and we learn as a culture and as a society that we can do that. But we do need to advocate against people pandering to 3-second versions of life. Nothing wrong with it, but when you want to unpack something, it takes longer. Just like you come to a branch meeting and you're having a gripe with your manager, it takes you more than 8 seconds to explain that. And no one has a go at you in a branch meeting and you're saying this is going on and that is going on. And people go, yeah, all right, that sounds awful. And they listen for the several minutes that you speak. And I think we need to bear those physical relations in mind versus our online ones, especially in light of COVID, in which so much of many people's lives became online. We forget those physical interactions that aren't 5 seconds interactions. Having a fag and a cup of tea with your mate takes 20 minutes, easy, no problem. You don't notice it. We have that patience inside us. But as a society, I think we need to promote that again almost.
Claudia, I feel that the media, the mainstream media, and perhaps it's just my perception, but they're constantly trying to shock us. These short little headlines of horrible things, and overreactions, and sometimes things that I'd question the truth behind. And I feel that desensitizes people. And my feeling is that the media now is very polarized. So you've got a left-wing media, an independent media, and the mainstream media that I feel is quite neoliberal or right-wing. So does that make it harder then to get the message out to people who aren't your natural audience for Bywire, for instance?
I would say, in my opinion, I'm Gen Z, so I'm a younger generation. But I feel like my generation, for example, I think we're already desensitized to most of the stuff that comes out in the media. If anything, I think people at this point really, really enjoy drama and enjoy trauma. Like it's gotten to the point where if it's not something that's gonna annoy people or make people upset, they don't want to hear about it. And that's also why I believe a large part of the country, or like same way in America, people claim to hate Donald Trump and claim to hate Boris Johnson, but they love the drama. They know that it's someone that's gonna. It's, to me, politics is show business. That's why all of that happens, is show business for the ugly. But anyways, moving back onto your point, I do think it makes it harder, but then it's also like it doesn't, because a lot of the stuff that independent media reports is how fucked the government is or how bad things are. So it is sad stuff and it is triggering stuff. The only difference is I don't think independent media are very clickbaity or are willing to conform to that kind of basically lie of a headline just to get your attention. Do you know what I mean? You've got certain outlets who, the Canary, for example, I think the Canary, I love their work sometimes from time to time, but I feel like they're really good at being able to do that kind of snappy headline and get your attention in, and then their content is, I think, for example, speaking as someone who's 24, it's very easy if I knew nothing about any of the stuff they write about, it's very easy for me to understand and catch on. So I think they do that well, but it's a bit of a 50-50. It does make it's easy because we do report about negative things, basically, because we're fucked. The world is fucked, especially for the working class and the left wing. But at the same time, because like I said, we're not willing to conform to these kind of snappy headlines or pictures that are just rude, like people doorstepping people or stuff like that, getting a picture of them at their worst, just to get people's attention. Obviously, it doesn't as much as that. So I feel like a lot of independent media readers and followers are people who are devoted, are actually aware of what is going on. Like, you have to be quite well informed about that the independent media even exists, or you have to be somewhat of a socialist or something like that to be an independent media reader. Whereas mainstream media, you're anyone anywhere and you come across it and you're like, yep. Do you know what I mean? Like I all of my friends, they know I work for the Independent Media Association. Do you think they send me articles from the independent media? They'll send me an article by the BBC and I just send them a picture of my middle finger up. I'm like, do not send me this. I don't care that this is happening. I don't care.
But how did you come across it, Claudia?
How did I come across the independent media?
Indie media.
So I think I just graduated my master's degree, and I was looking for a job in media. And when I first started my bachelor's, I did my bachelor's in journalism. And when I first did it, I wanted to work for the BBC so badly. I wanted to work for Vice. I was like, yeah, gonna work for Vice. This is gonna be great. Now, obviously, I'm an immigrant. I come from Poland, so our media over there is even worse than here. So when I had to come over here, I was like, oh my god, the press is so free. This is great. Like, I love it. Freedom of press, yeah. And then as I started studying it and just started going through it, obviously I had to do like a module in politics. While studying journalism, I just grew to hate Sky News. I grew to hate the BBC. I also became much more like active in like protests and stuff like that. And there was always Sky News reporters and they were just in people's faces. And then I'd read the article when they were being racist and I'd be like, fuck these guys. So I ended up spending like 4 years studying journalism, and I was like, I don't even want to be a journalist anymore. I was like, where am I going to do
That's the best way to study journalism.
I was just like, oh my god, no. And then I was just in a really like dark spot, and I was like, right, I just need to find a media job. And I was on LinkedIn, found some guy looking.
I forgive you.
Thanks. Found a guy that was looking for a TV producer, and I was like, I don't even know TV producing, but it's media related. Went into the job, and so the organization was basically called Guest List, and they are a partner of the Independent Media Association. And Oshi, the guy who had hired me, wanted to basically, so a lot of the independent media partners, they make content, but it's all written content. And obviously at the time that this had all started, everyone was moving on to video, everyone was moving on to YouTube. So he basically wanted to provide them with a platform that kind of extended that. So I would take their stories and present for them. So that's when I first got introduced to independent media. And I was like, oh my God, there's like a whole world out there of news that I actually want to work for. And then slowly but surely, I went from like emailing all these people being like, hi, please, can I report one of your stories? Like the Canary and like Novara and stuff like that, to now being on the Independent Media Association board and them emailing me being like, Claudia, can you post this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So.
I mean, that's the thing.
Impressive.
That's the thing I found with media, because I mean, before doing this, I used to do the local media for the local music for Black Country Radio, hence the background, and also I started my radio career on something that on the radio station for something that Kat's dad used to run, Greenbelt, with Greenbelt FM, doing the Christian metal scene, but a lot of people don't realise
that doesn't make me sound as cool as I'd like it to, Mark.
Oh right, yeah, but Greenbelt is considering the rest of the Christian output. Greenbelt is a lot better than a lot. I haven't been there for about 20 years, but hey, there we go. But you know, it's just about getting started there, and maybe there needs to be more input for people to do it. It's just literally asking people. Community radio is an amazing thing. I think that if more people could get involved in community radio, I mean, we have a show on Tuesdays, Political Unmuted. I believe John started that on another community station up in the northeast.
I think you're right. I think that what I mean is small iterations of community are able to build blocks. They literally are. Like, we don't all have to agree. We don't all agree, but if our politics and our ethics gather together, then we can organise. So, you know, I think we have to unlearn the lessons culturally of mass media.
Yeah.
And like Claudia was saying earlier about email lists and things like that aren't victims of the algorithm in that way, and chatting to your mates. And for myself anyway, as a trade unionist, as a trade union rep, going to my branch, speaking to my members. We're all in WhatsApp groups together. It's not like we only meet once a month. We chat all the time, and we do shift work. So we chat at 3 a.m. We chat at 10 in the evening. You know, these conversations matter, and they collate and they congeal into a thing. And I think we think something should have to look this way, and it should get a front page headline. But actually, I know most of the struggles I go through as a worker are never fucking covered by mainstream media, and when they are, it's inaccurate. And it's not about trying to make that front page accurate. It's about making that front page fucking irrelevant.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people in the country know that Weetabix and Clark's are both in the process of firing and rehiring their staff at the moment? Because for me, that's a huge deal, and I don't think people know. And how many people have seen that little video of Boris Johnson saying that he thinks firing and rehire is a terrible thing and it's morally abhorrent? And how many people know that he whipped his MPs to vote it down so that it can carry on going on the other week? I think with these headlines are very dangerous. Paul's put in the comments that the Canary and Squawk Box are very good at short, sharp headlines that are very understandable. One thing I find with some of the left media outlets, and I love the Canary and Squawk Box, and I'm really grateful that we've got outlets like that. But what I do find is that I see the headlines quite often, and I can't think of an example, but it literally is this awful Tory government doing terrible things again. And I just know that if I share that on social media, the people that I'm friends with that already agree with me will read it and get angry. And the people I know that vote Conservative will just think, oh, they're just stirring up trouble again. They're over exaggerating. And I kind of think we need to get the message out to those people about what's really happening. So I do worry sometimes that we're so angry on the left about all the injustices that are going on, that perhaps the way we express that anger isn't getting us the results that we really want. Claudia, that's not something I noticed with Bywire, I have to say. What would you think about that?
Do you know what I've actually pointed out several times at board meetings for the IMA, for example, that I think we've switched this over because we actually had a rebrand. We used to be the Media Fund, and then we switched over to Independent Media Association. Our approach prior used to be very anti-mainstream media, and I said that our goal here shouldn't be to create conflict between the independent media and the mainstream media. They can do their own thing. I mean, let them do theirs. Our concern is our readers, our viewers, whoever we want to deliver information to. And for a really long time, it did feel like it was, we were like, oh yeah, fuck the mainstream media. The mainstream media is owned by a bunch of billionaires. Cool. Yes, that is the case. What are we doing to fix it? Do you know what I mean? So after that, we did take on a much more neutral approach, which was our focus is to promote the work of independent media. We don't care about the work of the mainstream media. Yes, from time to time, we will remind people that it is owned by a bunch of billionaires and it is not democratically correct. But I do feel like you're correct in saying that there is a lot of the time we let anger fuel us to the point that we're more concerned in conflict or telling the other people that we're angry than actually creating a solution or creating or fixing the problem at hand. And what's worse about that is not a single person at Sky News is batting an eye thinking, oh yeah, let's like tweet a rude tweet at these guys or tell them that let's tweet fuck the independent media. They're not doing that. Do you know what I mean? They're not doing that. Like maybe one of their journalists who got hired at some point and he's just got a god complex might tweet it, but off his personal account that he's got like 200 followers on. So yeah, I do think conflict often blinds us from being able to, or anger often blinds us from being able to actually constructively come up with a solution.
One thing
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
One thing I do worry about with the with independent media and also with the left wing media is we all know about Novara Media, probably here and other things, and it's kind of like, and I've said this before, and people gone it's gone down, but it's kind of like Christian metal and Christian music. You know, there are bands at Greenbelt that probably Kat and I know that have probably got everybody who goes to Greenbelt know and really follow, but outside of that little bubble, they don't. And the same is true with independent media, and I think that going back to what happened with Novara, it probably did them more good than harm because of everybody tweeting about Novara Media. More people have heard about it, and the question is, and I think this is something for independent media to think about, is how do we get outside of that bubble? How do we get people who don't normally listen to Novara, don't listen to Canary, probably have never heard of them before? Because if I start talking about, I don't know, Sleeping Giant, For Today, you probably have never heard of them, but there are several 100,000 people who would go mad over them at Christian metal festivals and what have you. And that is the question which is facing media. I often say we need a paper, kind of like Metro. Other papers are also available. Could you imagine if
Paul
you
Dapper is on top of Metro? So, you know, the only thing you should do with the Metro is wipe your arse with it, Mark.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? Metro is available wherever. Wouldn't it be great if the unions all funded something like Metro? And it was literally, I mean, when I used to, pre-COVID, when I used to work in Birmingham...
Some people would call that the Morning Star, but I would question their integrity.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Morning Star, I didn't walk out of Snow Hill Station in Birmingham and get offered it 4 times. Wouldn't it be great if we had a socialist paper that didn't banner itself as socialist or left wing, but was just there and actually, but there were people out there just literally giving it out that maybe it didn't banner itself as a left wing socialist paper, but was actually giving out the talking points, because that is what the simple fact is. Media follows the press. And if we don't have that, is the thing. But and people say, like Carl said, media is expensive to produce. But our unions, they're not exactly poor, some of them. And wouldn't it be great if some of their money, if we all worked together, if we didn't work in our silos and produce this media, there was occasionally comment pieces by, say, Owen Jones and Paul Mason and other people, and we just talk normal news. We're talking about it on the Socialist Think Tank WhatsApp for the originals, but I think it'd be a good idea. And literally, there were people handing out them like like they were with the Metro and the other things that they produce, those other weird magazines that they used to produce. But I suppose that's now gone. But in a pre-COVID, post-COVID world, I think that's what we need to be doing. I know Richard Bergen talked about that in his post to be Labour deputy.
I think, you know, the RMT, speaking for the RMT, we have a magazine and it's full of shit most of the time, and it's full of politics. It's not always. Sometimes it says fantastic things, and I think that, not that you were suggesting it, Mark, but we have to move away from this God complex, such as Corbyn. You know, fantastic fella, lovely, but whatever. It's not. A movement should never rest on one person. Same as people calling themselves Marxists, because what does that mean? They're like they've got posters of Karl Marx on their wall, as opposed to they're socialists. You know, what is our politics? And it needs to not be based on a persona, on a particular person. If a particular person is the linchpin of a movement, we're fucked.
Yeah.
You know, we have to talk about what is being community and what is empowering people. Because I'm a trade unionist. Most of you know that. But we work on a real hierarchy of leadership in which we look doe-eyed to our leaders, such as people like Bob Crow, whom I had a lot of time for and I had some massive arguments with when he was alive, but I had a massive amount of respect for. But you can't rest a movement on one person or one persona. But I don't disagree about wanting some kind of mass media that people can access. And I don't disagree that unions have the money. My union is about 85,000 people. We're relatively small, but we punch above our weight in regards to other unions. But we've got money too, you know, and we can spend that wisely. But I don't necessarily think that's on producing a newspaper, but mass communication, absolutely.
Yeah, we need to get talking. And I mean, as Paul Smith said, the Morning Star is great. And look, I mean, I'll just pull
It's
one out.
not always great, Mark. I disagree with you there.
Yeah, but the thing is, we can pull each other down, but at the end of the day, they are doing something. I see it all the time with Ash Sarkar and Owen Jones, that people pull them down, but at least they're having the balls, excuse my French, but to actually go out on mainstream media and point to our position. I may not always agree with Owen, and sometimes I've pulled him up, and you know, we were on different sides in the Unite leadership contents initially, because I was a big Howard Beckett supporter.
What a fantastic result from Sharon Graham.
Well, I'd love to have seen Howard Beckett, but I'm enjoying what Sharon's doing. But then you've got to realise I'm from the West Midlands, and Howard was my regional sec, and I kind of maybe think my kind of way I carry myself is a bit of like him, but obviously with the Black Country accent, like Alice was saying. I'm sorry about the subtitles because they don't speak proper with our Black Country accents. It's normally having to deal with our Vida Same Pet, but now it's dealing with Crossroads. For those of our age, I think Kat's got the joke, but maybe not others haven't.
I did, unfortunately.
So Claudia, Mick's put a comment in the chat earlier on. So a few people, Jonathan, Tim and Mick, all mentioned that we do have to be careful that we're not talking into an echo chamber, because that's very difficult for us on the left. And Mick suggested that we should be putting adverts through letterboxes, you know, for the left media channels. Would it be a huge sweeping statement to suggest that there might be some generational issues that we need to address? That maybe, is it a huge sweeping statement to suggest that your generation, maybe a paper newspaper format isn't what the thing is needed for them, but perhaps for older generations, they're not, the social media or electronic resources aren't as accessible for them?
Yeah, obviously, agreed. I don't remember that. I pick up a newspaper if someone's left one behind on the underground and my phone has died. That is the time you will see me pick up a newspaper. Otherwise, forget it. I picked up a newspaper in university where my lecturer kept telling us, you guys have to read at least one newspaper a day if you want to be a journalist. Absolute bullshit, by the way. No, you don't. But my point is, one thing that I was actually going to say when the question was, I think, how can independent media put itself out there. I think two things actually. I think one thing that in terms of generations, I do think we should focus on my generation and people below me. We are, at the end of the day, the future, and we are the people that are going to be living in the world that you guys have unfortunately fucked for us with climate change and all these other things. So we're going to be the ones dealing with it. And I would love, whenever I get a chance, to all of my friends, even at Buy, where I've suggested so many times that I think we should, I've started a TikTok channel for them just to make politics and social injustices more accessible to younger people. And I do think the focus, if independent media was able to focus a lot more on younger generations, mainstream media don't do that. I'm so sorry, they don't. The BBC maybe somewhat, yes, has a BBC bite size. It tries to relate to the kids, do you know what I mean? But no, I do think if independent media gave that time and effort into being able to like relate or make its content more accessible to younger generations, there is a market that is just not targeted whatsoever, and it is it would be great. I would love for something like that to happen, because then if you have a generation that's growing up on independent media and completely declining mainstream media, you're not even having to start a conflict with them, because they're just getting eroded over time. And Gen Z is a massively active generation when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement that happened last year, or the Palestine protests that happened. I saw a tweet somewhere that said you gave basically, as sad as it is, our generation obviously also has very high suicide rates and mental health statistics. So it was this idea that like you're giving a generation that is already at its end something worth fighting for, and if you keep doing that, they are going to topple down the 1%, and we're going to bring them down. So it is, I do think that opening up to younger generations and focusing on them is something, it's an untapped market, and it could work wonders. And just as a side note, I think another thing that independent media has going for itself that should be promoted, and it isn't promoted enough. Mainstream media all report the same things. They have selective reporting, whether they want to, for example, there was attacks on journalists in Hong Kong. The same thing was happening in Mexico. They didn't report about it happening in Mexico because they make money from Mexico. They don't make any money from what was happening in Hong Kong. So they were reporting left, right, and saying, oh my God, journalists getting attacked. And they set the whole news agenda. Whatever the mainstream media report, that is what people speak about. And that's the thing. But independent media, and so it means a lot of things just go untouched upon, like, I don't know, like Grenfell. If they decide that Grenfell's no longer a topic of interest, they're not reporting about it. But still, shit is still happening around Grenfell. Now, my point is, independent media outlets, because they're run by people, like everyday people, they're not massive corporations. They're run like maybe an organization of 10 people max, if you've got the funds to do that. And a lot of the time, these people are volunteers. So it means that independent media outlets aren't often able to actually focus on a variety of news. They have to tackle one specific subject or one specific area of things. So for example, we've got, because we've been speaking about unions a lot, we've got independent media partner called Union News. Now all they do is news about unions, which I think is great, because if you pay attention to independent media, it means that you are able to access news about every single topic individually. It's not just news that billionaires think is important and they think that you should hear about. You are given the option of being like, right, today I want to read an investigative piece about what's going on in Southeast Asia. We've got partners that are focused on just Latin American news. Do you know what I mean? So there is that kind of variety, and I do think that it needs to be reinforced more, that there is option, and we don't just report the same thing. I think a lot of people, when they think of independent media, they just think we report the same thing as the mainstream media, but with a left-wing tone, and that's not the case. A lot of independent media partners are aware that, like, you should be as neutral as you listen. Impartiality is impossible. We are human. Everyone is going to have a bias one way or another. The key is being able to acknowledge your bias and being like, right, we are a bit more left-wing. This is what we do. You can tell from our tone of voice. Whereas the BBC, they love to be like, oh, we are 100% impartial. And then they'll go and say some bullshit that is blatantly right-wing. Now, if you've got someone who's not the brightest, and they've been fed this whole time, oh yeah, this is an impartial news outlet, and then they read a statement that's right-wing, they might not be able to differentiate whether that's a right-wing statement or if it's neutral. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's, sorry, I've just went on a whole ramble, but I love that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mark, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I just want to come in and I've just been watching the chat. It's great to see Miss Rahman with us, and I know that we are not particularly a Labour Party event, but I just think I want to give big up to Mish because of what he does and everything he does. Some people think that it's easy being on doing what he on the execs and stuff, but he does things and he has to face up with some of the people in the Labour Party who are not pleasant. And I've been in Labour Party forums and had that, and I think it's great to have him here. So thanks, Mitch. But Unity News just recently put something up on our little chat about sharing our, and I think it was at shit. Obviously, the Facebook system has the restream stuff has blocked it out, but it's true. We need to be sharing stuff, and sometimes I get annoyed. My less left-wing friends get annoyed by the amount of stuff that I share, and they do block me from their streams because I share a lot. But we need to be talking about this. We need to be bringing up the simple things that I've said, and I wish we could have got Mission tonight actually, because he has a lot of good ideas on this, and I think we should do it again. Hopefully, we can get Mish and Claudia's comrade Dan Lewis, another great trailblazer in independent media, and again, big up to what he did with TWT News, and if you didn't, TWT TV, and if you didn't see that, check that out. There's a lot of good things on the World Transformed. The World Transformed is basically us, but in real life. Basically, we do everything online, and they seem to do it in real life, and I think that's what we have to do. So I think it's great, and as I say, good to see Tim's agreeing with me. Mish is a great guy, and he should be a leader. Although we don't want to talk about leaders too much, but leaders is the important things. And
but it matters that they're not all blokes, though, Mark.
Yeah, of course. And there's some great other ones, and I hope to see them come up, like another Cat Eccles, and there's a few others in the West Midlands, and it's just sort of like, you lot need to speak up. I was at a thing called Chainmakers, which is about in the West Midlands. It's kind of like the West Midlands Match Girls, and they were talking about women coming forward, and they went, "Step back, comrade," and I almost shouted back, "Speak up, comrade." I mean, in my CLP, when we have our AGM, I always hold back to see if somebody will take CLP. For those who don't know, is Constituency Labour Party, who will take one of the offices I have off me, but nobody ever does. So I just say, okay, well, I'll do it again, and I think. And I know that women have even said, step back. But, I'm the only man on this call tonight. There's three of you, and there are things in the Labour Party especially.
It doesn't happen often, to be fair, mate.
Yeah, and if I hadn't stepped in, there would have been the three of you, not me.
I love you, Mark. I have much respect and solidarity for you, but this is a rare occasion.
Rare occasion,
not on Socialist Think Tank, though.
No, it's not.
Socialist Think Tank's different.
We do try, as you know, and unfortunately sometimes we don't always succeed because sometimes people have to jump in at the last minute, and I think that there's some good. I love that from Neil, because these days CLP means Constrained Labour Party. No comment. I'll leave it for Mish if he's still in the chat.
Fuck the Labour Party. That's where I'm at.
But
I've been there for a while, my friends.
The thing is, though, have you ever seen that thing that it takes about 30,000 votes to make a Conservative MP, and then about 50,000 for a Labour MP, and then it's sort of like millions for other parties, and that's the thing for me. And I kind of think of it like, and I'm probably going to get called anti-Semite for this, but I can't leave a party that my family have been part of for 4 generations. This is going to crash, and I've seen it in my area. I know I sent to some of you on the chat what happened in Womben with the votes we got, but eventually it's going to fall down, and we need to be there. We need, as Big Johnny Mac says, we need to be there to We can't.
Or maybe it deserves to. These are really difficult questions, and I respect what you're saying. You're saying you grieve for something and you care about something, right? But and I'm not some kind of fuck the Labour Party, whatever. I'm saying that my experience of it has not ever in my lifetime really represented my values. But I'm 42.
Well,
and if it doesn't represent my values, I either want it to change quick, sharp, or I want to go and make my own thing.
I
I
understand.
don't know. I don't know how to go about that. I'm not saying I'm magicking some party out of nowhere, but I'm saying it's okay for me to say I think you're shit. That's all right, and let's base the conversation from there.
But I mean, to actually include another, and I've mentioned him several times, he was also the same age as us, Mish. He's actually exactly 4 months younger than me. By us lot all jumping out, there wasn't the people in the machine to make the party that we wanted to. As Mish said, we are the nurses. I always want to Photoshop him with a nice little nurse's bonnet on his head, which I think for those who know Mish would be quite funny. But that's another thing about me and playing with Photoshop when I've got the time. But anyway, that's the Labour Party.
But can I just interrupt 1 second and say, us in our 40s, can we direct the question back to Claudia in her 20s to say what she thinks of the matter?
Yeah, sorry,
I'm landing that one on you.
No, that's all right. Do you know what? I actually, I've never had the chance to join the Labour Party. Up until I was, I was too young for a very long time, and then by the time I became politically aware, I went to vote. For the first time. I hadn't even joined the Labour Party, but it was the 2019 election. And I went to vote for Corbyn. Now, I had just recently received British citizenship. So I was allowed to vote. They had sent me 5 letters being like, yes, you can vote. And I was so excited. I was like, this is my first time I'm able to vote. Yes, I can do this. After this, joining the Labour Party, going to be great. I got to the place. Now, what had happened is I had citizenship, but I hadn't. I still had a Polish passport. I wasn't going to get rid of my Polish passport. So I didn't think anything of it. I just showed up with my Polish passport. The woman just saw the front of my passport and was just like, "You can't vote." I was like, "Yeah, I can." I was like, "I'm a citizen." I was like, "I've called this morning. I've done this whole thing." They got security to escort me out to tell me that I couldn't vote. And I was just like, sorry, what? So I went on Twitter and I wrote about what had happened. The tweet ended up going viral, like 30,000 people retweeted it. Loads of people started responding to me saying that similar things happened to them. And surprise, surprise, all of them were like trying to vote Labour. There was one girl who said that she went with her whole family who were French, and her whole family had the same rights to be in the country. All of them had taken their British passports, but her British passport was getting renewed. So she took her French one. So they didn't let her vote, even though she had everything else, etc., etc. It was like a whole debacle. So then after that, I was just very pissed off, and I was like, I don't want to join. And when I decided to join the Labour Party again, Keir Starmer, unfortunately, came about. And if I'm being 100% honest, the man makes my blood boil. He is an enemy of the people, not a man of the people. If I would happily, like, if I saw him on the street, I would ask him to fight. We can try. I really don't care if he punches me in my face. I don't care. I don't like Keir Starmer. He is a centrist. He is not
I'm down with you.
He's not a left-wing leader whatsoever. Like, even recently, the fact that he suggested to raise the living minimum wage by 50p, the price of a packet of crisps. I'm so sorry, but like, all this man does is, like, Boris Johnson will say some outlandish shit or do some outlandish shit, and then Keir Starmer's just like, stop. No, please, or like just gives him a little slap on the wrist. You know what I mean? It's not, but I do feel like, obviously, my opinion on this is, on a larger spectrum, I do think we live in a two-party, it's a two-party system. So it's either Labour or the Tories. So I don't want to give up on Labour, because it's like, okay, cool. Let's be realistic. If I go and vote for Lib Dems now or another party, I've basically wasted a vote, because they're not gonna get into Parliament. They're not going to be in power. They're not going to be the ones.
I don't disagree. I just find myself permanently in a difficult place.
Oh yeah, no, same. I'm like, it's like choosing between Dumb and Dumber. There is no right option. Do you know what I mean? It's like, are you just willing to? I feel like the best solution to do is ideally stick with the Labour Party and just hope that Keir Starmer goes. But the way everything is going at the moment, I feel like we're not moving progressively. We're going backwards on ourselves. So my question is, after Starmer, is it just going to get worse? Do you know what I mean? Is it going to, rather than going more left, it's just going to go even more right? So, but yeah, I do agree with that. I don't want to give up on the Labour Party, because fundamentally speaking, what the Labour Party stands for, like the Labour Party itself, not the Labour Party leadership. I agree with everything with Labour. Labour is my party. But just the Labour leadership, I don't think it correlates very well with what Labour is supposed to be. And that's the problem at hand. It's like people just don't, we're not being represented in the way that we should be. And he's talking a bunch of bullshit about what we want when it's, no, I'm so sorry. But at this point, I would rather Marcus Rashford be the leader of the Labour Party than Keir Starmer, because a footballer doing more than a whole politician, I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I meant by when I said I think politics is just show business. It's nothing else. As long as you can put on a show and entertain people, you got it.
Well, don't get me started on the Labour Party, because I come in out of Womben where we didn't even get into triple figures in the last election, which was only 2 days ago in either election we had. It's such a shame, because Dennis is a great socialist and who is standing, but there we go. And Mish, if you're out there, I'll share the elections results with you, because it's shocking, but then there are a number of reasons, and it's just sort of like getting people into it. But anyway, what do we do with media? Because media is the main thing. It was the Sun that won it, wasn't it, in 1997? That was my first election, and boy, do I feel annoyed at Blair for what he did after that. But it is, the Sun said it. It was the Sun that won it. How do we produce something to affect elections?
Was it the Sun that won it, though? Because I have no doubt that their biases had, or what I perceive to be their biases, had a huge impact on electoral results in this country for a long, long time. And I've no doubt it had some impact in that election. But I do remember being an older teenager at that time, being very aware that there was a general climate of feeling that the Tory government, as it was destroying our NHS and essential services, and we'd had the recession and house prices have plummeted and a lot of people were suffering. And was that also quite a big factor? Because for me, I feel that was, and that Tory government wasn't going to win an election very easily to get back in. But I mean, that's not to diminish the impact that Murdoch press has had in this country, Australia and the US.
I mean, I think there will
my recollection in the late 90s, I was studying TV and radio at Salford University, a degree I failed quite happily. I was having other life experiences, was protesting against the Iraq War, the second Iraq War, and realising that Tony Blair was a proper fucking shit. And nothing has changed in 20 years since. And so my remembrance is not the Sun promoting it. I remember the Guardian doing that.
Yeah.
I remember mainstream media over 20 years ago promoting something that I was understanding as a young person, as Claudia's a few years younger than that, but experiencing the starting of a war in the name of our country to be entirely wrong. And I know we're coming up closing time now on this discussion, but I think that we have to not insulate ourselves to not that I believe the people on this call are, not at all, nor do I think this community is, but that we don't isolate ourselves to this echo chamber of I had this experience. We need to look, as Claudia has said, to the people that come behind us and the people that came ahead of us, and go, right, how do we make this all work together? And it'll be a bit messy, and we need to be uncomfortable, and we need to call ourselves on our privilege, and we need to go to those vulnerable places of calling ourselves on our bias. We're all, but we all bring our own experience, but if that experience is witnessed, depends on how the community behaves and accepts and involves each other. So, I love you guys, and I want more of these conversations, and may we continue to go to uncomfortable places.
Agreed.
So how do we move media forward? How are we to literally take our place at the table and not let the likes of Laura Koonsberg, the likes of Robert Preston? How do we move move our points? I mean, Novara probably did it brilliantly when they got cancelled, for want of a better term. But how do we do that? How do we move media forward? I mean,
Mark, I think we have to remember that most of the members that I represent don't give a shit about Laura Koonsberg. They care about how their shift went, if their swap went all right, if they felt safe at work.
Yeah.
And they have those conversations with real people in their workplace. And that's not necessarily represented in mainstream media. And I think that's the same. I don't just mean in workplaces. I'm not trying to, I don't want to try and dictate some kind of, you must be a worker. There are absolutely valid, genuine, important reasons why people aren't, or also why people aren't considered workers, such as bringing up a child, being a parent. That's unpaid labour. But how we are community, and it won't necessarily be advertised according to capitalism, matters, but how we gather is really important, which is why I love Socialist Think Tank, because we do gather and we're really honest with each other, and we don't all agree, and neither do we want to punch each other's lights out. You know, it's the fact that we can disagree, and I can wear silly cat ears, and we're still not falling out with each other.
I thought that was because it was Halloween that you decided to wear the cat ears and
no,
what have you.
You know, it's Saturday night. Why the fuck not?
I know what you're saying, but I'll give you an example. Just before the, I think it might have been the day of the 2019 election. I had gone down and bought the Morning Star down at the co-op in Womben where I live, and literally was waiting for my father, who had to do some stuff at the post office up there, and went to the local cafe, and I was sat there reading my Morning Star, and you know, and there were people there, and they were reading the Sun. Oh, that Jeremy Corbyn reading, and you know, on those days there was like 16 pages in the Daily Mail, and some of them had the Daily Mail of hate towards him. And they were literally quoting from it there. You know that thing which British people do where they shake the newspaper, you know, you like that, and I had the Morning Star, which was free that week, which was solidarity to them, and that's how we do it. You know, and you know, we need to be out there. We need to be, and that's why I say solidarity to the likes of Dahlia and Owen and also. Asaka, who go on these mainstream media and put our point. We may not always agree with them, but at least they're doing it. How do we keep on putting our point of view across? We have to be in there, and that's why I'm totally agree with Mish. And if you can ever go see his "We Are the Teachers, We Are the Nurses" speech from TWT, which is an awesome thing, that's why I'm wearing their t-shirt at the moment. This year, it is so true. We need to be out there. We need to be discussing these things.
Claudia, so would you say Generation Z is the way forward then?
I would
focus on our future.
I would say, I would say, do you know what? It's obviously not the only way forward. I would say that realistically speaking, though, it is the easiest way. And it also means that if you don't want to move off social media, you can adapt to social media, because younger generations are obviously on social media. But I do completely agree with Mark in saying that I always say the only way to take down the system is to infiltrate the system. You've got to get in there to work out exactly what they're doing, and then steal their shit and then do it better than them. Do you know what I mean? You've got, like, there are obviously, they're doing something. The mainstream media, as much as I hate to say it, they're doing something right if they're on everyone's screens and everyone's constantly thinking, not necessarily right, but they're doing something smart. Do you know what I mean? That if we, people with better moral oh my God, I nearly said a really bad word. Oh my God. Okay, a moral compass. Take these smart ideas and apply them with better morality, that could be fantastic. Do you know what I mean? It could really work in everyone's favor. But yeah, I do think that focusing on younger generations is a really, really good strategy for independent media. And another thing, another unapologetic plug here, I do think being able to actually make people aware that independent media exists and providing them with a space where they can find all of them collectively, because there's so many independent media outlets. Like, I'm on the board and I still get new partners every day, and I'm like, what? There's more. So there's so many outlets that, like, it could, if you're someone who just wants to get news on the go, obviously you would just be turning to the app on your phone or whatever the BBC is tweeting or whatever, because you want it quick. And if you imagine you're someone who wants news quick, but you also want to be able to support independent media, it's very difficult for you to do that if you're having to look through 15 different web pages in one go just to find a story that you want. Whereas the Independent Media Association, we provide on our website links to every single one of the partners' content, as well as a page that literally gives you all of their latest video work. So whether that's the Canary with their daily digest, or you've got Dorset Eye with their 10x6, you've got so many different outlets on there, and we bring that all under one roof to kind of reinforce the credibility of independent media. Like, we are organizations that deserve people's time, respect, and money, please, because we are all broke because we are independently funded. Like, reinforcing the credibility of independent media and educating people that we aren't just what the mainstream media do, but left wing. We are actually entities in their own, and there are people who spend hours upon hours to provide excellent investigative work, like, for example, Declassified UK or the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. So much great work is out there that we all put under one roof, and of course, Socialist Think Tank is also on there, so you can find all of it there. So, yep, I do think check out Independent Media Association.
Definitely need to get more people to know about the IMA.
And let's not forget Unity News, who've been in the chat tonight as well. Great to see
Sorry,
them.
I can't see the chat. I would have shouted out Liz so long ago.
Oh, Claudia, I should have given you the link.
No, I can't see I haven't seen a single thing. That's why you've been seeing me check my phone, because I'm trying to like read it on a really small screen.
Oh,
I apologise right now, but I have to go for a pee.
Okay.
Right. We'll try not to say anything too interesting whilst you're gone. So I
we know where you're going.
I thought we couldn't really talk about free media without speaking about Julian Assange.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind what's happened in the last week as well. I mean, to what extent do we think that what's happened with Julian Assange, how has that impacted on the media that we have? Is that already, Mark, would you say that's already changed the way that the media is?
I don't know with the mainstream media if it's affected it, but obviously America is out to get him. That is why they want him. Assange is an interesting case, and the interesting thing is, with WikiLeaks, they have never had to retract any of what they've put up out there on the media. And I'm hoping you're still here with us. Good. Just was playing up on me because I'm trying to. I'm acting as the hub tonight, and I think Womban capitalism broadband is not working. But yeah. Anyway, I do hope it's going to be an interesting thing to see, and I don't think he should be. He got the details from illicit sources, but it needed to be shared.
Claudia, does what's happened to Assange, does that affect the way that Bywire does? Does that make you more aware of the dangers you might be bringing upon yourselves?
Do you know what I think? With the kind of work that we do, I think the dangers are just. I mean, sometimes I write a sentence and I'm like, yeah, I could definitely, like, if assassinations was still a thing, like left, right, and center, this is definitely like. Yeah. Just quickly, now that I can access the chat, I want to quickly shout out the Media Reform Coalition as well. Paul wrote in the chat, who are absolutely great, and they're obviously the ones who produced the report, which actually gives us all the information about who owns the media. So definitely check that out. But I would say, picking back up on Julian Assange, I was actually aware of like the whole situation about Julian Assange before I knew anything about independent media. And it always very much, I found out about it by walking past a random protest, asking a person, what is this about? Hearing about it and being like, are you fucking serious? If a journalist, a whistleblower, is going to be imprisoned for the fact that all he has done is expose the war crimes of the United States government, then we should be really questioning about what else they are potentially hiding. And it really, I'm going to get pissed off. It really, really aggravates me that mainstream media outlets, cool, you can slander anyone you want. You can be racist. You can't be racist. I don't agree with it, but do whatever the fuck you want. But if you're a journalist, your job is to report and expose the truth. So if you've got someone who is basically in the same position as you, a journalist, and he's basically trying to get extradited to the US to be put in with God knows how many counts, why are you not more pissed off about it? The mainstream media doesn't care about Julian Assange, and it really aggravates me because he is supposed to be one of you. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're a journalist, and it just goes to show that the mainstream media doesn't care about the reporting the truth. They are basically just a mouthpiece for the government and nothing else. But I think the situation with Julian Assange is a bit bittersweet because it does. I think for a lot of people, it has highlighted the risks of what it means to actually expose the truth. But I feel like it's also given people the kick up the arse that they need to actually be like, whoa, is this what they're actually doing? Like in this day and age? Oh my God. Like you hear about this stuff, you hear about journalists being imprisoned and like getting murdered and stuff like that. But you always hear it in countries that are way more freedom of press apparently doesn't exist in. Do you know what I mean? So when you hear about it in the US and the UK, where apparently our press is so free, why is it happening? If our press is so free, why is that happening? If our press is free, we should be able to report on what the government is doing in our name, shooting innocent civilians. In the video, you can see children getting shot. I'm so sorry, but that is in no way can you explain that to be politically motivated. That was a child in the video. It was a child and a father being shot, and they are trying to silence Julian Assange for the fact that he has exposed that, and it is absolute bullshit. And the whole smear campaign that they've also developed around Julian Assange, ludicrous. And it just, I think it really goes to highlight how far people in power are willing to go just to keep their secrets a secret.
It does feel like that way, and I know we say assassinations don't happen now, but the reporter who broke the Panama Papers story initially, she was assassinated, she was killed, she was murdered with a car bomb, and they still now don't know. You know, they've got some people on trial who were directly involved in putting the bomb there, but they very probably weren't the people who planned it, and we'll probably never know. And it's actually, I find it terrifying to think that. And then when you think how many high profile figures from our own government and the establishment in this country have been linked to those Panama Papers, it's quite terrifying. I'm quite in awe of journalists. And Lizzie's, I think Unity News has written in as well. They know what they're risking too. And it's just really sad to think that you guys are trying to provide a service and you have to bear that risk upon you to do that. So,
you know I've always said, if I get arrested or something goes wrong in my life, God forbid, or universe forbid, whatever you believe in, Matrix forbid, but whatever goes wrong in my life, if it's happened because I'm doing something I believe in, I don't care. I don't care. I did what I needed to do on this planet. Do you know what I mean? Like if I got assassinated for beating the shit out of Boris Johnson, I'm a happy woman. That is fine by me. Well, I hope I don't get in trouble when someone's not like recording this. And
I'll be your character witness. I'm in.
Well, at least we got to think. At least at the moment, while we still can, we're not being taken to football stadiums and shot, which is what happened in Chile. And I think we have to make hay while the sun shines. Somebody on this chat, and I'm sorry it's gone back too far for me to be able to see it, but was saying about obviously voter ID. Now, I always remember what my great nan, who was the first generation who were involved in the Labour Party, was doing. She used to be in a car with people, driving people round to vote. And maybe we have to do the same. Maybe we have to be there and saying to the people, okay, have you got your ID to vote? Have you got the things which are accepted? Here's a list. And maybe that's what we need to do.
I don't think the answer is binary. I do think it matters to activate people to vote. But I do think it's also important to recognise, to value, and to engage with people that are saying "fuck this." You know, I feel like I'm on that fringe all of the time. I feel as an activist, as a trade unionist, as a socialist, I'm on that borderline all the time. And I don't mean I don't make decisions. I mean that I don't fall in this group and I don't fall in that group. You know, I think it is important to vote. And I agree with Claudia in what she said. I agree it's important that we vote Labour. But I'm not a member of the Labour Party, and I don't want to be a member of the Labour Party because them as a collective party do not represent me. I know some wonderful councillors and MPs within the Labour Party. Sam Townsend, who's involved with Socialist Think Tank, she's one of them, right? But I also know that I work every day with people who I think are fantastic activists that have got nothing to do with politics. That doesn't mean they shouldn't have, but nor do I think it's my job to perform some kind of evangelism to them to believe in it, because I think that's a fallacy. You you know, we have to learn to all come together and to organise and to not necessarily all sing in the same note, and work together.
Well, the best choirs. Who's going next? The best choirs don't all sing in the same note, but what we have to do is to sing in harmony, if you see what I mean. And you know, some great counsellors out there. I want to just give solidarity to Ollie Armstrong, who's in Birmingham, who suddenly decided to step down at the next election. And I think that's what we need to do. We may not agree with Momentum, we may not agree with CLPD, we may not agree with a union, but we all need to work together where we can. I mean, there's always that.
But that doesn't mean we're going to support Labour, Mark, because I'm not gonna in most circumstances.
No,
I'm
you're not
going to.
But do you remember the scene in the in Lord of the Rings where you've got Gimli and Legolas, and they're together, and I think it's Gimli says, "I never thought I'd die fighting next to an elf." Well, what about an elf? What about a comrade? You know, what about a friend? They say.
But that makes the argument binary, and I don't think it is. And
I don't
Mark,
think it is.
I think we're on the same page. I think our values are the same, Mark, and I have respect for you, and I have solidarity with you.
Yeah.
But I don't think those binary examples help us.
I don't think nothing is binary.
Claudia, you were going to jump in, and I jumped in. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't remember what I was going to say now, though. Oh, it was about the whole, right, I don't remember what I was going to say. It was about the idea of, like, taking people to vote. One thing that I've actually noticed, right, a lot of the people that independent media or, like, the Labour Party and stuff like that are supposed to represent working class people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, are not actually aware of how our voting systems work or how all of this stuff operates, because it's not been made accessible to people who don't have this higher level education or are able to use jargon. I've sat down with my friends and so many, like, not like my older friends or my friends' parents, and I've spoken to them about voting, and they've been like to me, oh yeah, there's no point in me voting. But when I ask them, I'm like, oh, what do you think about first past the post? Do you think they can tell me what first past the post is? They don't have a clue. And I'm like, that's the voting system we have in this country. And it really, I think there is this massive gap between a lot of the time people don't vote or don't know what they're doing, because they just don't know what they're doing. They don't know how it works. They don't know what their vote actually, how it's counted or what it does. And that's just down to the fact that I don't think politics has been made accessible to our target audience, let's say, a large part of our target audience. It's very much like, that's why I say, in order to actually be an independent media reader, you have to be actually interested, because you have to get over that barrier of getting past the jargon and reading between the lines to figure out, okay, what is this? Like, I remember when Brexit was happening, I did not know what it was for so long. We had so many people coming in. I was in sixth form at the time. We had people coming in, giving us talks, explaining, like, yeah, vote, do you want to leave or stay? I was just like, stay, because I'm Polish, so I don't want to, like, get rid of Poland. I didn't understand anything else that was going on. And it wasn't until I sat myself down and I read it, and I had to dumb it down for myself, basically, because all the speakers that they were getting in, speaking to people who are interested in politics, like, there were so many students who were going on to learn politics at university, and you had people coming in speaking at them in a language that I was just like, is this even English? It sounded like it was as Queen's speech. Like, why is that the language that you are presenting me with, expecting me to be able to follow and then adapt it into my life? Do you know what I mean? I've kind of rambled on again, but I do think there is this kind of massive gap between making politics accessible to the working class or people from socioeconomic backgrounds, basically. Yes, education is so essential. There you go. That is it. Yeah.
I have to say, I'm quite involved in my local Labour Party. I've got friends who are councillors. I've got, I went to university, and I don't know what a town councillor is and what a parish councillor is and what a county councillor is. I have no idea what powers or authority or what any of them can do, and I think we've just got a really complicated system, and you have to actively go looking to find out about it, and that's not helpful. But it's not a particularly glossy, exciting subject to be writing about in the media. We got all these dramatic headlines, and no one wants to read a boring article about this kind of thing, but it's really important for us, and it has an impact on us. And Yeah, I actually find I found with Brexit, my feeling was that the media, the mainstream media, really did dumb it down, and they didn't. I felt didn't discuss the fact that actually it was a really complex thing, and there were lots of different options. We don't often get told there are options. I think I don't know. I don't know, Claudia, if you were aware particularly of what was going on in the media about Brexit at that time.
At the time, no. At the time, whatever I'd heard about it from a speech in sixth form, and I was just like, "Yep, don't understand. I don't understand." So I was just like, after that, do you know what? Probably, if my takeaway from the whole situation was it's either leave or remain, I probably was just reading BBC all the time, and you're probably right. It was just constantly right. Do we leave? Do we stay? Do we leave? If we leave, we get this. If we stay, we get that. And it's so much more. And you're right, it must have been dumbed down, because if it wasn't, you wouldn't have all of these right wingers now pissed off and left without any business because they thought that Brexit was going to work in their favor because they didn't have the time to read between the lines.
And it was dumbed down within unions. So my union, ASLEF union, and other unions were pro Brexit, and for the most part, there's a load of those reasons that I support. I voted Remain, by the way, and much to the chagrin of a lot of people I know, and I did it because I was training. I was on a second level of training of being a health and safety rep, and funnily enough, Claudia, one of my good mates who was Polish got racially assaulted.
Filed at the wrong time.
And Brexit was quoted over it, and I just thought, fuck this shit. I'm not having it, because there's this principled argument that we shouldn't be part of these politics, which I agree with, right? And then there's this cultural argument, this argument which is the reality on the street, Caledonian Road. This was King's Cross, right, where my mate, who's a good